to welcome you to episode 543 of the Unpopular Podcast. This is the man, the myth, the legend, Jalen Hunter. Here at the Unpopular Podcast. Now I'm going to ask you to agree with me and ask you to hear me out. I feel like all we heard and all we've heard since Lamar Jackson was out, for a month actually, I didn't realize it was that long, but since Lamar Jackson went out, we heard, all Lamar Jackson has to do is come back. All Lamar Jackson has to do is come back and everything is solved. The Ravens, they have an easier schedule moving forward. The toughest part of their schedule is out the way. All they need is Lamar Jackson to come back and we'll be fine. Then the initial thought was Lamar Jackson was going to come back a week ago against the Chicago Bears. That obviously didn't happen. But Lamar Jackson did make his return on Thursday Night Football against the Miami Dolphins, and the Baltimore Ravens won 28-6. Now, to nobody's shock, probably the first few drives, Lamar Jackson looked a little bit rusty. I mean, when you miss a whole month of professional sport, like you're going to be a little rusty. So he didn't look great his first few drives, but once Lamar Jackson started, getting his wind, and once Lamar Jackson started feeling more comfortable back in the flow of things, he looked like the Lamar Jackson of old. 204 yards, 4 touchdowns. He looked damn near a passer rating, or damn near perfect passer rating. And at least offensively, it looked like the Ravens that we're used to, at least this year. Derrick Henry, 19 carries for 119 yards. Zay Flowers, 64 yards. Isaiah Likely, 60 yards. Mark Andrews had 2 touchdowns. The reason why I wanted to sort of start with this is because, like I said before, like I said when Lamar Jackson was out, and like I'm saying now, Lamar Jackson was never going to be, was never going to be the saving grace for this team. Lamar Jackson coming back was never going to just flip the switch and everything was good. The issue with this team was never Lamar Jackson. The issue with the Baltimore Ravens was the defense. Could their defense stop enough people, get enough stops, so that the offense that was averaging 35 points, I believe, when Lamar Jackson was there, can their offense or can their defense stop enough people, which up to this point they haven't been able to. Remember, Lamar Jackson was 1 in 3 with this team. Which brings me to Thursday. While, yes, there are some positives to take away from this game, I don't want people to think that. I don't want people to put the Baltimore Ravens on this, they're back to contender status, or, they're back to Super Bowl, they're back to a Super Bowl caliber team, or they're back to the heights that let's slow down. Now, mind you, I'm talking in a position of somebody that picked the Baltimore Ravens to win the Super Bowl, and I'm telling people to slow down. Because, one, there were some great signs from the Baltimore Ravens this game. Again, Lamar Jackson coming back. After the first few drives, it looked like he was the same. Derrick Henry got back on track, had 119 yards again. There were things that looked the same, that looked great. Roquan Smith returned, and he looked good. There are some positives that you can take from this game. But there are also things that should be a sign of concern. One is, at least in the first half, the defense looked like the defense of old. The defense looked like they were about to give up 5, 6, 700 yards. I think at halftime they gave up like 350 or something like that. That's a lot of yards to give a team like the Miami Dolphins. And we're going to talk about them in a second. I said once they lost to the Bills. I said once they lost to the Chiefs. I said once they lost to the Lions. It doesn't matter. Obviously, Lamar Jackson is going to play like Lamar Jackson. Obviously, this offense is going to be great. I mean, at the time, they were like the second-ranked offense. Or first or second-ranked. This team is going to go as far as the defense takes them. And while, yes, the second half of this game, Monday, Thursday Night Football, the defense looked great. You forced, 4 turnovers, I believe? Yeah, you forced 4 turnovers. Or 3 turnovers. That looks great. But you're also playing against the Miami Dolphins. And I don't let's not make this the ceiling, because the goal isn't to beat a 2-6, 2-7 team. The goal is to win, to compete against a top tier team. And if the defense played like they played, look, there was a lot of instances in the first half where the Miami Dolphins should have scored. They were in the red zone a couple of times. They had interception. They had fumble. They had missed kicks. This score could have been much different at the half. In fact, Miami could have had a sizable lead if they weren't a bad team. I'm happy, and I like that Lamar Jackson returned. I think that, that's obviously important for the Ravens. But like I said before, Lamar Jackson returning isn't going to save this team. It has to be the defense getting together. Now, I know a lot of people are going to bank on, Zach Orr has been getting killed majority of this year, and rightfully so. Like, you're the defensive coordinator, and the defense just looks putrid. However, last season, they were able to get their stride and catch their stride before the playoffs. A lot of people are saying they're hoping that could happen again. I don't know if that will, but, we'll see. Again, the first half of this game, the defense didn't look great at all. However, the second half, they kind of turned on. They forced turnovers. They forced Miami into bad situations. That's how it is. So I do want to say congratulations to the Baltimore Ravens for beating the Miami Dolphins 28-6. They kind of destroyed them, but again, we're talking about two teams that many people would hope are going and not hope. Many people would say are going in two completely different directions. Let's just say that. Which brings me to Miami. Buckle up. We're gonna be sitting here talking about Miami for a minute. This is yet another game where the team kind of beats themselves, especially in that first quarter. This is yet another game where Tua, while the numbers might be there, Tua gets outplayed by another quarterback. This is yet another game where the defense, and I cannot emphasize this enough. I didn't do it when I was talking about the Baltimore Ravens, but the Baltimore Ravens offensive line is not good. Yes, they had 2 sacks, but they're not that good. But this is yet another time where the defense just, yeah, there was a bad penalty call against Ollie Gordon. Like a tripping call. I don't think it was tripping. But Devon Achane is clearly with Tyreek Hill being out, Devon Achane is clearly the best player on this offense. And, you know, the conversation surrounding Miami now, they fired their GM. Let me first address that before we move any further. They fired their GM, who happened to be African American, and people are screaming racism. You know, people are saying, "Ew, how did you fire the GM, but Mike McDaniel and Tua is still there?" Or how was the first person that got fired a black man? Let's calm down for a second. Now, you guys know that I am always one to be pro-black. You know what I'm saying? I'm always one to be pro-black when it comes to coaches, when it comes to GMs. I want everyone of color to succeed in whatever role they are in. And I want African Americans and people of color to have more prominent roles in these sports teams. I've been very open about that, whether it comes to coaching, whether it comes to GM, whether it comes to owner. I want representation in these rooms. And I've been very open in saying that I feel like when African Americans are given opportunities like this, given opportunities to be head coaches, given opportunities to be GMs, they're on teams where there's not much hope. There's not much ability to show off how good or how bad you are because it's not a good team. So you're already playing behind the 8 ball. So I want better for my people. With that being said, however, I completely understand and completely agree with the GM having to go. Did you know that I think the Miami Dolphins have the longest streak of not winning a playoff game in the NFL? This GM has been here for God knows how long, for a while. And the team has always had a ceiling. And that ceiling is never high. Even the year where Tua had the year that got Tua paid, which, shout out to Cam Newton, I didn't realize Tua got paid when he was hurt, so they did the right thing while he was hurt. Did you know that the year that Tua broke all those, records and had that offensive explosion, they still didn't win a game in the playoffs? I think that there is going to be a lot of people that are fired at the end of this season when we talk about the Miami Dolphins. I think there's a lot of people that's going to be fired. I think there's a lot of people that's going to be moved at the end of this season. One of those people is the GM for the Miami Dolphins. He had to go. While I am always pro-black, shout out to Issa Rae, I'm rooting for everyone black. I also understand when you're put in these positions and you're given ample opportunity to succeed and you don't, then it's time to go. That is when it's time to, you have to get it moving. You have to go. Because we're trying to win, and you are not doing your part. Whether you're African American or not, person of color or not, you got to go. So I don't spell racism there. I just think he was the first domino of a domino that was automatically always going to fall, either now or the end of this year. Which brings me to Mike McDaniel and Tua Tagovailoa. I wrestle with this a little bit because I'm not as low on Mike McDaniel as a lot of people. Remember, Mike McDaniel, he orchestrated one of the best offenses, at least for a singular year. he was the Miami Dolphins were one of the best offenses we've ever seen when he first arrived. Remember, Miami put up 70 points against the Denver Broncos. I do agree, and I've said this before on this podcast, and I'll say it again. I do agree that there are some people that are better off as coordinators than head coaches, and I think Mike McDaniel might be one of them. I'm never going to sit here and act like he doesn't know football. I'm never going to sit here and act like he's not good at his job, but what I will say is maybe he's better at as a coordinator, which has proven to be the case at this point, than the head coach. So I've never in my years of life have seen a demotion from head coach to coordinator on the same team. So because of that, I don't think Mike McDaniel is going to be the head coach of this team starting next year. But I understand completely. There's no point of firing him now and starting at there's no head coaches that's going to be available. You give them a whole offseason, give them a whole head start. No. Because what you're not doing, because obviously the GM just got fired. You need to get a new GM, you need to get a new head coach. Let's just figure this is not something that you want to do in season. No. So I get why every report that you hear says Mike McDaniels is going to remain the head coach until the end of the season. Does that mean he's going to get – mostly when you hear verbiage like that, when you hear wording like that, he is going to remain at least until the end of the season. That means that 9 times out of 10, once that season's over, he's out of here. Now, I'm not putting all of the issues on Mike McDaniels, but I do think that also, especially in football, you hear the term leader of men a lot. You hear the term someone that commands respect in the locker room. It at least from the outside looking in, it doesn't seem like this team really respects Mike McDaniel as much as you would want them to, as much as you would hope they do. It kind of feels like he's lost a lot, or at least that there is a disconnect with him. And again, I always talk about his quirkiness and what he does. That's cool when you're winning, but when you're losing, that rubs people the wrong way. Nobody wants to hear all that. Nobody wants to see that. They want a stoic presence, and that's not what Mike McDaniel was at all. Now, I'm not saying his mannerisms is why they're losing. I'm not saying that his personality is why they're losing, but if you lost the locker, if you don't command respect in the locker room, or I'll say, if the locker room doesn't respect you, there's absolutely no way you can be the head coach. Because what happens is then they look at assistant coaches. Then they look at, coordinators. And then that means you're essentially, and no fault to you, but that means that you're essentially being undermined. That's never going to succeed, ever. So I think Mike McDaniel's tenure has to be over. Whether I believe he's a good coach / coordinator or not, it doesn't seem like the locker room respects him. And he has to go. Which brings me, lastly, to Tua Tagovailoa. We know that his teammates don't respect him. We learned that by information that he chose to tell us. You calling players only meetings and players not showing up / showing up late is the ultimate sign that whoever you're trying to connect with does not respect you. Because this isn't mandatory. That's what, just like OTAs, player only meetings are not mandatory. It just shows that the players respect whoever's calling this meeting. And the fact that you have players on your own team that I cannot stress enough, you to a tongue of Aloha decided to tell the world. Now you're having situations where the world knows that your own teammates don't respect you. I've always said this. And obviously I know I've never played in the NFL. I played football 1 year. I know I'm not an expert when it comes to playing football. But with me saying it, I've also heard former players say it. Just because you make the most money on the team doesn't mean you deserve a C, that captain patch on your chest. That doesn't necessarily mean that teams agree with me, but you have to earn. In all cases, you should earn that captain patch. It feels like Tua earned that patch only because he was the highest paid player on that team and he was the quarterback. Yes, I agree that the quarterback, you would hope that the quarterback is the captain, the leader of the team, seeing as though he's the most important position, but that's not always the case. I think people look at that Tua captain patch and it's just like, you're not a captain, bro. You only got that because you have a good relationship with the coaches, I guess, and they paid you as much as they paid you. But in the same breath, you're one of the main reasons why we lose week after week after week after week after week. Which brings this full circle. I think Tua has to go. I think they just have to tear it down. And it seems like that's what they're, with the firing of the GM and it looks like that's what they're headed towards. But the seeds that you planted, the roots are dead. There's no solid foundation to sprout anything of use from this team. You trade away your best players. Remember, they traded away Minkah Fitzpatrick just to bring him back for less. Like, you traded him, and you traded him for essentially your best defensive player. Shocker, your defense sucks. All your best players that you've had are gone. Tyreek Hill, with his age, he's probably not going to be there next year. There's no solid Jalen Waddle. You got to start trading off pieces. Because, again, there's no fruitful ground right now that you can there's no seeds that you can plant that's, hey, this is no. So I think that a full teardown has to happen. And I think it will happen. And we're seeing them firing the GM. You're seeing it. I'm not saying that this is one of the worst teams, or that's a lie. This is one of the worst. I'm not saying this is the worst team in the NFL. But I will say that this is one of the worst situations in the NFL. Because not only do you know that you're probably getting rid of the head coach, now you have to be the GM, whoever GM you're going to hire, has to or gets bestowed the task of trying to trade one of the worst contracts in NFL history into a tongue of a low to a team. Now, they will do it. I mean, there's teams that obviously need a quarterback, but are those teams okay with paying that price for a quarterback that ceiling clearly isn't Super Bowl? Shit, I don't even know if the ceiling's playoffs at this point. So, you're also going to get a quarterback that may or may not tell the locker room business. Just saying. It's a tough situation, but we will see. Congratulations to the Baltimore Ravens for beating the Miami Dolphins 28-6. What week is this? This is week 9. Let's give my predictions for week 9 of the NFL season, starting with the Chicago Bears at Cincinnati Bengals. I think that this is actually a major game for the Chicago Bears. You don't want your season to slip out of obscurity, and that could happen once you lose to a backup quarterback in the Baltimore Ravens, and then you lose to a team that lost to the Jets. I know it's any given Sunday, but the questions are already rising when it comes to Caleb Williams. There's already a sector of people that has given up on Caleb Williams. Mind you, this is a number 1 overall pick. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of fans that are blaming a lot of the trials and tribulations of this year on the lack of progression from their quarterback. They're not looking at Ben Johnson because they saw how successful Ben Johnson was in Detroit as the coordinator. They're looking solely at Caleb Williams. And mind you, remember this week, I think 3 key defensive players have requested a trade. So there's clearly something bad going on in Cincinnati right now. The last thing you want to do is walk into Cincinnati with that dumpster fire and lose. Now, they can lose. Don't get me wrong. Joe Flacco can slice and dice, especially with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and Chase Brown has had a resurgence, but I'm going to pick the Chicago Bears because there's a lot going on with the Cincinnati Bengals defensively. The defense was already bad, but right now it's not looking good at all. And I think that the Chicago Bears need this game more than the Cincinnati Bengals. I know Cincinnati has this idea in their brain that by the time Joe Burrow is healthy enough that they should still be in contention for the playoffs. I don't foresee that at all. So I think that this is more important for the Chicago Bears, and I hope they play like it. So I think the Chicago Bears are going to beat the Cincinnati Bengals. Minnesota at Detroit. Minnesota, there's a lot going on as well. A lot of backlash, obviously, has come out about the team for letting Carson Wentz play on a bad shoulder, who had to have season-ending surgery for that. And now it looks like J.J. McCarthy's back. I don't know what the hell was wrong with J.J. McCarthy and why he didn't play last week, especially if he's good to play this week. But you're playing against the Detroit Lions in Detroit. I know that, and I keep saying this, the Minnesota defense is good. However, when you're on the field as much as they are, because the offense hasn't dictated and hasn't really got points and hasn't really had long drives, it's tough. You know, you get worn down, and that's how you get destroyed a lot of times. I think the Detroit Lions are going to destroy them. I know it's a divisional rivalry game, but no. Jared Goff right now in this offense, the Detroit offense is playing much better than Minnesota's offense. So I have Detroit winning this game. Carolina at Green Bay. I think Bryce Young is coming back. In fact, I know Bryce Young is coming back. That doesn't matter. You're going against the Green Bay Packers. While no, I don't think that they are really playing at a Super Bowl level, which I thought they would. They're still playing much better than the Carolina Panthers, so I have the Green Bay Packers. Chargers at Tennessee Titans. At this point, you would be foolish to pick the Tennessee Titans over anybody. Tennessee has the worst team one of the worst team, if not the worst team in football. And while the Chargers, they have their ebbs and flows. They have Justin Herbert, and even with their offensive line being banged up and all the injuries that they're dealing with, they are better than the Tennessee Titans. So I have the LA Chargers. You have Atlanta at New England. New England's one of the best teams in football. They have one of the best records. Surprise! I'm shocked too. But shout out to Drake May. Shout out to Mike Vrabel. Shout out to everybody over there in New England. Atlanta suffered a terrible loss. I think these last 2 weeks, and what's worse, man. This is a little bit of a PS. I'm starting to kind of feel bad for Kirk Cousins a little bit because no, I don't feel bad that you're still able to get paid as much as you get paid. Shout out to him, but the man just had one of his worst games of the season. Obviously, he hasn't really started like that, but he just had one of his worst games as a Atlanta Falcon. And in that same week, it comes out that he wants to go to a place where he has the opportunity to be quarterback one. Now, there isn't a lot of places that he can be quarterback one, but if I'm looking, I'm like, yo, why would I want Kirk Cousins if – did you just see what he put on tape? It's tough. And I don't think they're going to beat the – New England Patriots is a juggernaut right now. I don't think they're beating the Patriots. They could. They have the pieces to, and I think Michael Penix's going to be playing, but I don't think they're beating the Patriots. I have the Patriots winning. And I wonder – I know the trade deadline, I believe, ends Tuesday, so I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see. San Francisco at New York. I'm going to go with New York. I know Cam Scatterboo is not playing, but or Malik Neighbors, but Jackson Dart is, and I think at this moment, Jackson Dart might be just a tad bit better than Mac Jones, and I know that the 49ers are dealing, and they've been dealing. Well, actually, no, they've been because they still have Christian McCaffrey, they still have George Kittle. And I know that Saquon Barkley ran all over this team last week. I'm going to change my mind. I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. I think that the 49ers are going to look at Christian McCaffrey and say, hey, yo, the team's on your back today. So go take us home. And I think he will do that. So I'm going to go with the San Francisco 49ers. Colts at Patriots. Not Patriots. Colts at Pittsburgh Steelers. Pittsburgh, it's kind of tough sledding for Pittsburgh right now. I think they're on a 2-game losing streak, and now you're about to play the best team record-wise in the league. The Pittsburgh Steelers defense has failed them this year. Their defense has not been good. They can't get key stops, and you're about to play the best team, at least record-wise, in the league. I have the Colts going into Pittsburgh and winning, unfortunately. I think Aaron Rodgers has been good. I think that the offense hasn't been the biggest issue, even though the offense can slow down at times because the offensive line is still not good. So I know Aaron Rodgers does take a lot of sacks, and they don't really have a second number. They don't really have a second option at the wide receiver position. But their defense has been their issue. And you're about to go up against Jonathan Taylor, who I think if they didn't give the MVP to quarterbacks every year, I would say that Jonathan Taylor should be the MVP right now. And this Indianapolis team is real. So I got Indianapolis. Denver at Houston. I will say Houston has looked better over the last few weeks, at least their offense. We know their defense is stout with Lassiter, with Derek Stingley, with Will Anderson. They have forgot his name. Danielle Hunter. They have a great defense. It's just their offense hasn't been able to catch up. That's kind of been the case these last two or 3 weeks. And Denver did destroy the Cowboys a week ago, but the Cowboys' defense is absolutely horrible. That is not the case for the Houston Texans. I think this matchup is extremely close and extremely even. I'm gonna go with the Houston Texans. I think being at home is gonna help, and I like what I've seen these last 2 to 3 weeks from the Houston Texans, especially their offense. I don't know if Nico Collins is playing. If he does play, that helps a lot. If he doesn't, that kind of hurts my pick. But I think the Houston. I know their defense is going to be good. They have one of the best defenses in football, as well as the Denver Broncos. But I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. Jacksonville at Raiders. I know that I guess something happened in practice where Travis Hunter is going on IR and could miss the remainder of the season. I don't know. I know that it was so serious they had to check for, I think it's ACL or meniscus, and they said that was intact. It's a huge blow for this team. He was. It looks like he was just starting to get it. It looks like that the offense and defense was really starting. He was starting to understand it more, and he's one of their most important players, especially with Brian Thomas Jr. not playing too well right now, and them kind of getting away from the run game because it hasn't been strong. I think they're going to beat the Raiders because the Raiders aren't good, but I think that Travis Hunter not being there is a major blow to this team. So I do hope for a speedy recovery. Again, as of right now, I don't know exactly what happened, but I do know that he's on IR now. So, I don't think it's going to hurt them necessarily this game against the Raiders, but, that's definitely going to hurt down the line. New Orleans at Rams. Rams are going to destroy the Saints. Saints are arguably the best or the worst team in football, and the Rams are one of the best. So I have the Rams. I'm going to wait for this. I'm going to move forward because you have actually no, talk about it now. Kansas City Chiefs at Buffalo. This is the game of the week. Even though I know it's not Sunday Night Football, I know it's not Monday Night Football, but this is the game of the week. You have Patrick Mahomes going into Buffalo and playing Josh Allen. Now, we know the history of the Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes matchups. Josh Allen dominates in the regular season. Josh Allen damn near can't lose to Patrick Mahomes in the regular season. But once you get to the playoffs, Patrick Mahomes is 4-0 against Josh Allen and the Patriots. This is a very important game for both teams. Both teams are kind of hot right now. Both teams are playing as best as they can. Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs are getting, they are as healthy as they'll be right now, and the Buffalo Bills looks like they're getting a lot of their defensive players back. This is the time, and this is a huge game because both of these teams kind of feel like they're looking at each other eye to eye. I think I said the Patriots. I apologize. I meant Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Both of these guys are looking at each other eye to eye. And if you're Josh Allen, you obviously this isn't a huge game if you win, because people are always going to say, "Hey, well, you always beat Patrick Mahomes in the regular season." However, if you lose, it's going to be like, "Well, you're never going to beat Patrick Mahomes." It's unfair how it is, but that's how it's going to be. I can guarantee you, if the Buffalo Bills win this game, they're going to say, "Well, you have to do in the playoffs," or "You always do in the regular season. Let's see what happens in the playoffs." And the Buffalo Bills are going to take the most hit. If they lose this game, they're going to kill the Buffalo Bills. This game matters immensely to Buffalo. And it matters to the Kansas City Chiefs because, again, all we've heard, kind of like the Baltimore Ravens, all we've heard is wait until they get perfectly healthy. Wait until they get perfectly healthy. Well, they're perfectly healthy, and they have They have Xavier Worthy. They have Rasheed Rice. They have Travis Kelce. They have uh, Patrick Mahomes. That's what, and their defense is healthy. So can a fully healthy fully healthy Kansas City Chiefs beat the Buffalo Bills? I think they will. Here's my thing. I do love what I've seen out the Buffalo Bills, at least last week, when we talk about Josh Allen not having to do as much because how good James Conner's running the ball. I don't know if you're going to be able to do that against this Kansas City Chiefs team, because one thing that their defense is stout at is stopping the run. I'm going to go with Kansas City. I think Kansas City, with Rasheed Rice being back, with Xavier Worthy being healthy, with Patrick Mahomes playing, I think right now he's the leading candidate for the MVP. I think that Buffalo. What I don't like about Buffalo, even when healthy, is their defense. Their defense, while it's okay doesn't beat the great teams. I mean, everyone's going to go and look at how they made that epic comeback against the Baltimore Ravens in week 1. However, the Ravens did still score 40 points on them. So, and they also lost to the Patriots. They also lost to the Falcons. So, the Falcons kind of ran it up on them. So, I just don't like their defense. And I don't know. I think their defense is going to be their Achilles heel, and if they can or cannot win the Super Bowl. And I think it's going to be their Achilles heel on Sunday against the Kansas City Chiefs. So I have the Chiefs beating the Buffalo Bills on Sunday. And you have Sunday Night Football, Seattle at Washington. I think Washington can win. You have Jaden Daniels back, and that is, once you have your starting quarterback and one as good as Jaden Daniels, that changes a lot of things. However, you still don't have Terry McLaurin. For some reason, he was the best receiver a week ago, and now he's not playing again. And the defense is still not good. And Seattle's defense is stout. And Seattle's offense, especially Jackson Smith-Njigba, he's a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year. He's been incredible. I'm going to go with Seattle. Unfortunately, as much as I want my Commanders to win, I don't see a path for them to win right now. And it's not because the offense, is solely because of the defense. Honestly, the defense is not good. Our defense ain't good, and I'll just be honest. Our defense is not good. Just like I thought it wasn't going to be good in the start of the season, the preseason, we didn't really do much. Our biggest acquisition on the defense was Von Miller. That's not going to get it done. So I have Seattle winning. Washington is probably not going to make the playoffs, bro. That's crazy. Then you have Monday Night Football, Arizona at Dallas. Dallas should win this game because Arizona is not good. I don't even know if Kyler Murray is going to play, but that Dallas defense is horrible. But you're in Dallas playing against Arizona. I'm going to go with Dallas. So those are my picks, and we'll see which one is correct or not. So there's a topic that I wanted to talk about before I get off, because I want to talk about basketball in a little bit, but I needed to address this because it's a mess. This is my last football topic. It can't be understated how important football is in the South. Football is king in the South. If you don't believe me, there are several Netflix, Hulu documentaries expressing how important the South and football is to each other. The whole the whole saying is football is king in the South. And last episode, we talked about Brian Kelly getting fired from LSU. And it turns out that in the same week, the athletic director, Scott Woodward, also got fired or dismissed from LSU. LSU is a mess right now. Now, for people that don't understand why I said that, and for people that don't understand why I feel I need to talk about this, let me explain. The AD in a college is much different than a GM of a football team, of a professional football team, or a professional basketball team. The AD is in charge of a college, is in charge of all athletics. He is the athletic director, not the football director or the basketball director or the baseball director. He is the athletic director. So all athletics run through him. Baseball, basketball, football, volleyball, whatever sport you have at your school goes through the athletic director. Remember, I said football is king in the South. With that being said, that doesn't mean that football should dictate your entire decision making. What I mean by that is this. I understand Brian Kelly getting fired because his imprint is directly shown on the football field. What he does doesn't affect anything else but the football field. So I understand Brian Kelly getting fired. But do you realize that Scott Woodward is the reason why you can feel how you feel about Kim Mulkey, right? But he's the reason why Kim Mulkey is in LSU. He also played a major part in LSU winning a national championship with Angel Reese and FloJo and I forgot her name. She plays for the Connecticut Sun right now. But he's one of the main reasons why LSU basketball won a national championship. Did you know that as we speak, the LSU men's baseball team is like a dynasty? They've won like 3 of the last 4 championships, national champions. A lot of that is because of Scott Woodward. No, the LSU football team's not that good. Did you know that LSU hockey, volleyball team is one of the best in the nation? That's under Scott Woodward. Did you know that LSU has several top draft picks like a Ben Simmons, like a Markelle Fultz? Not Markelle Fultz, like a Ben Simmons? What I'm saying is this. You fire Scott Woodward because of one entity, even though he has success everywhere else. I know football is king in the South, but that doesn't necessarily mean that football should dictate everything that you do. Because in no way, shape, or form can you say that Scott Woodward is a bad AD just because the football is bad. Again, LSU, at least baseball, is sitting on a dynasty right now. LSU basketball won their first and only national championship with him as the AD. Now, I know, again, you're going to say, none of that matters in football. Okay, so then if you're going to do that, you should have a separate AD for just football and a AD for everything else. Because there's not a school in the nation, not a school that is great everywhere. There's not a school in this nation that is great in every single sport. You give and take. No, Scott Woodward and the LSU Tigers football team hasn't been great, but he's been great everywhere else. Now, I think the major reason for that is because the LSU or the Louisiana governor got involved. So what you're saying is, what's the governor name? Jeff Landry? You're saying that Jeff Landry, I wanna remind people a couple things. Louisiana is one of the poorest states in the United States. I don't know if people knew that. Majority of Louisiana, because all people want to think of New Orleans, but you have Baton Rouge. You have a lot of other cities in Louisiana. Louisiana, a lot of their residents live under the poverty line. Yet and still, Governor Jeff Landry finds it important, and I get it to a certain extent. LSU brings the most money to Louisiana. That's the only state. Well, that's not the only state because you have Louisiana Tech and everything. But LSU brings the most revenue to Louisiana. I get it. And most of that revenue comes from the football team. I get it. But why are you letting a non-football player dictate and make football moves for your school? What sense does that make? Again, LSU football has dropped the ball on a lot of instances. And I also think, which I think is stupid, and I'm using it's stupid. They're also going to look at Scott Woodward, and I think this is another reason that got him fired. They're saying, yo, Scott Woodward is the person that hired Brian Kelly. Scott Woodward also was the person that hired Jimbo Fisher when he was at Florida State, and we see how bad Jimbo Fisher ended at Florida State. First and foremost, why is anything I did at another job affecting what I'm doing at this job? What sense is that? Why am I getting penalized for something I did at another company? Make that make sense. On top of that, Brian Kelly, as much as Brian Kelly didn't fit, as much as Brian Kelly didn't work, he's still record-wise and reputation-wise is and has been one of the best coaches in college football. In fact, people are saying that he probably is the number one coach available once, or that got fired. So, like, one, you're looking at thing I did in my previous organization that I worked for, yet and still, you hired me after that. So how are you going to look at me and say what you did at your previous job affects why you're getting fired right now, yet you hired me after the previous job? On top of that, you're only looking, I get it, and I'm sure I get it. You're only looking at football, but I'm the athletic director. And my work has brought championship upon championship to LSU. Maybe not football, but basketball, baseball, volleyball. We are one of the top schools in sports and other things outside of football. But again, people are going to say football is king, which is true and is right, and I get it. But never, if that's going to be the case, you should hire a football athletic director than a regular athletic director, because there should be. LSU is a mess right now. You don't have a head coach. Now you don't have an AD who was one of the best ADs in the nation. You're letting a governor who governs one of the poorest states in the United States, you're letting a governor make decisions about your school and your athletic director because LSU brings the most money in the state. Well, if it brings the most money in the state, even when this team is good, what is that? What are you doing with that funds? LSU is a mess right now, bro. Mess. Which when Brian Kelly got fired, I thought that LSU was going to be by far the best job available. I thought that when you look at all the coaches, all the schools that need to coach, the big three right now is LSU, Penn State, and Florida. I thought, and maybe Ole Miss, because maybe Lane Kiffin might go. Who knows? But I thought that LSU was probably, out of those 3, 4, was probably the best school that needed a coach. Now that I see that now you don't have an athletic director, and it looks like the governor makes more decisions than the school president, I think LSU might be one of the worst jobs because your job is never going to be secure if you don't make enough for if you don't win enough football games. Because apparently your football record also is contingent on, or your job security and the athletic director's job security. No matter what, you can win 10 national championships in baseball. You can win 5 national championships in basketball. If your football team clearly sucks, your job is on the line as an athletic director. Have that make sense. LSU's a mess. MESS. And I feel bad, bro. I feel bad for. Never thought I'd feel bad for. Never mind. I felt bad for Scott Woodward because he didn't deserve to be fired. Because, again, that's like firing the athletic director for Florida. Florida, who just won a national championship. Or that's like them firing the athletic director from Texas, even though Texas, they have like the best volleyball team in the nation. Like, what are we doing? That's like firing the athletic director for North Carolina or Duke. As much as I hate Duke, their basketball team is their basketball team. North Carolina, our football team sucks, even with Bill Belichick. Yet and still, our basketball team is still good. It's like you have to understand. Or, perfect example, that's like firing Oklahoma's athletic director. Yes, their football team ain't really won much, but they have one of the best softball teams they have a dynasty on the softball side. So it's like, what are we doing? Do you only care about one thing, or do you care about the entire athletic community? Because you know what all the schools that name Oklahoma, Duke, North Carolina, you know what they all have in common? One sport makes most of their revenue. And that one sport that makes most of the revenue hasn't really seen success like that. North Carolina hasn't won a national championship since 2019, 16. Like, and I'm a North Carolina fan. That's my school. That's my ride or die school. Yeah, man. LSU is a mess. Let's get off of football. I want to go over to basketball because there's some trends that we're seeing that I want to discuss. And, I want to talk about if they're going to last or if they're just not going to last, I guess you could say. Let's first start with, and I've said this before. a lot of people ask me why I feel this is the quote unquote golden age of sports. And I think not only that we have arguably the best player playing in every sport. Like you can look at every single sport and say that arguably is the greatest player of all time in that specific sport. Um but mainly looking at basketball, this is the most skilled the league has ever been. This is the most skilled these players we've ever seen. And look no further than the fact of we're, 2 weeks into the season, and we've already had 4 50-point games. And on top of that, we've had several 40-point games. I don't think that we're going to get a 50-point game every week. No, I don't think that, it's just on average we're going to have people score 50 like it's nothing. But I do think that, and I do want to highlight the fact of this is skill. Aaron Gordon scoring 50, Shea scoring 50, like this is what we do. This is it. This is the league. I'm not saying again I'm sure we're going to get more 50s this year. But I think Anthony Edwards scored 52. Like, come on. This is the most skill we have in the league. Like, if you don't believe me, look at VJ Edgecombe. A dynamic rookie. We have a player right now, what's his name? Luka Doncic is averaging 46 points right now. Like, what are we doing? This is the most skilled the league has ever been. And while no, I don't think that we're gonna get a string of 50s like we had the first week of the season, but I can bet I will put my house on the line and say that we're gonna get at least 2 or 3 more 50s the rest of this year. Well, shit, we might even get it by the end of November. That's just how it is. So I think that's something no, we're not going to get a bunch of 50s. Like, we're not going to have people averaging 50, but skill is increasing, man. That's all I'm saying. We also have a bunch of teams that record-wise, Oklahoma City's 6-0. The San Antonio Spurs is 5-0. The Chicago Bulls is 5-0. The Philadelphia 76ers is 4-1. I think the only team, I will say this. The reason why I don't think that a team like the Chicago Bulls is going that 5-0 is kind of fraudulent. I don't think that they're going to maintain that the rest of the year because we've seen it a lot. We see the Chicago Bulls either get off to a very hot start or a very slow start, and they usually, find their level towards the middle of the season, and then they always end up being one of the worst teams or at least one of the bottom playing teams. That's just usually how it is. They start off hot and then boom. I don't know how I will say this, and I was wrong. Milwaukee is a lot better than I thought. I don't know if that's going to maintain either, even though Giannis has played great. The 76ers, as unfortunate as it is, I'm waiting for that injury. I'm waiting for that Joel Embiid injury, even though Joel Embiid hasn't been their best player. It's been Tyrese Maxey and VJ Edgecombe. And, I think Oklahoma City is Oklahoma City. I think that they're going to get much better, actually, with J-Dub coming back because they're in a lot of overtime and squeak-out wins. But when J-Dub comes back, it changes everything. So I think they're real. I think it's not too far-fetched to say that Um, Victor Wembanyama is a top 3 player in this league right now. That's one of the only reasons why the Spurs are 5-0 right now. They are incredible. Yeah. I want to talk about 2 teams that are struggling right now. And the first one is the Orlando Magic that find themselves 2-4. They were one of the last teams in the league to get their first win. And there's only one other team that doesn't have a win, but we're going to talk about them in a second. I think you can look no further than the Orlando Magic struggling than looking at Paolo Banchero. I'm not putting it all on him. The team still lacks shooting, even though you thought that someone like Desmond Bane was going to change that. Someone like KCP was going to change that. No. The Orlando Magic, when I look at this team, did I said KCP? I'm sorry. I just meant Desmond Bane. When I look at this team, one, they only have one shooter. And that is Desmond Bane. Desmond Bane is the only one that you can have faith in consistently taking a three-point shot. On top of that, though, Desmond Bane is not a volume three-point shooter. Like he can't be. If he's your number one option, that's an issue. Now you think that'd be better with Paolo and Franz, but let me go to Paolo, who seems to always have the ball in his hand. Rightfully so. He is arguably their best player. But I feel like a lot of things that should be easy for him, especially being 6'10", is not. Like mid-range, he'll pump fake, get to the middle, miss. Or he'll get a wide open mid-range, miss. And because he's missed 1 or 2 times, he starts to get hesitant. So then he'll pass the ball more to players that shouldn't be shooting, like Anthony Black. I think the Orlando Magic roster is not that good of a roster. I think they have defenders like Jalen Suggs, like Wendell Carter. They have, obviously, your 2 best players in Franz Wagner and Paolo Banchero. However, both of which are 6'10", both of which aren't really that good of shooters. They both need the ball in their hands, and they both need to be closer to the rim. Well, then what does that do for Wendell Carter? What does that do for someone like Jonathan Isaac? I don't know. And they don't. I don't think this team was built the way that they thought it should be built. And I think that they put a lot of pressure and a lot of faith in Desmond Bane, but this team the team isn't that good offensively. I think they'll be okay because I trust Paolo and Franz, but what is okay to them? Because I think that they had the thought that they would be one of the top top Eastern Conference teams, especially with Boston and Jason Tatum being out, and Indiana with Tyrese Halliburton. Indiana is not good at all without Tyrese Halliburton and without Miles Turner. So, yeah, I think that they'll be better, but they're not as the way that their roster is constructed. I don't think they'll be a top. I thought they could be, but I don't think now that they'll be a top tier Eastern Conference team. Which brings me to my last, and I'm not gonna stay on this long. There's only one team, and this is the last topic before we go. This is the one team that does not have a win, and that is, shocker, the New Orleans Pelicans. And I know you're gonna say, well, DeJounte Murray's not there. Okay. You want to know how I knew going into the season that by far the New Orleans Pelicans were going to be the worst team in basketball? They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They have 6. I'll say it again. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 centers on their roster. Six. It's so bad that they picked DeAndre Jordan up from his couch and started the next day. Jordan Poole's talking about how dead and how bad the crowd is and the culture is in Washington, while he is currently averaging 19 points a game as their star guard. In fact, let me see what his shooting percentage is. That might be a little better. Jordan Poole's current shooting percentage is 40% from the field, 41% from the field, 39% from three. Mind you, Jordan Poole, I think, makes the second most money on this team. Are you really shocked that this is the worst team in basketball when their star player right now is Jordan Poole and 6 centers on a team with Zion Williamson, might I add? There you have it. That's been today's episode of the Unpopular Podcast. I truly, truly appreciate you guys. If you want a Popular Podcast shirt, hoodie, sweater, long sleeve joggers, the links in the description below. I have multiple different colors, multiple different designs. Get your Unpopular Podcast merch today. Also, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to get as many subscribers as possible. Tell a friend to tell a friend to tell a friend to subscribe if they haven't. And I appreciate all of you guys. Also, that goes for the DSPs, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, SoundCloud, wherever you get your DSPs, wherever you want to hear this luscious voice of mine. Please, please follow, subscribe, rate, share. It means so much to me. Comment. I'm trying to grow the podcast unilaterally, and I cannot do it without you guys' help. So for my DSPs, for my YouTube listeners, viewers, please, please subscribe. Please tell a friend. Please share. It means a lot. For my socials, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, I post pretty much daily, whether those are reels, whether those are stories. That's probably the quickest way to get to me. Just leave it in the comments. Please be respectful, and I don't mind going back and forth. It just means that you're listening to me. You see the content, and you have an opinion, all of which I care immensely about. So you keep it respectful. I don't mind debating, going back and forth. Just leave in the comments, and don't forget to follow. Until next time, much love.